She said it while buttering her toast, like it wasn't the sharpest sentence I'd ever heard. The knife scraped once across the slice. Too much pressure, too little care. She never really did learn to spread anything gently. There was always force behind it, even in the little things. I set down the coffee mug across from her, filled to the top, just the way she used to like it. Almond milk, a splash of cinnamon. She didn't look up, just scrolled, swiped, paused to tap alike. We had fallen into this Sunday rhythm. I cooked. She sat. Sometimes she grunted a thank you. Sometimes she didn't. But today felt off. Not tense, just charged. Like something in the air was waiting to be said. She took a bite, eyes still on her phone, and chewed like it bored her. Then casually, as if commenting on the weather, she said, "You're just Dad's wife. I don't need your permission." Just that. No emotion, no emphasis, just words. Carefully flat, rehearsed even. I didn't flinch. I reached for the butter dish, shifted it back to center. "Okay," I said, wiping a crumb from the placemat. "Then I'll stop giving it." She blinked, just once. That was all. No reaction, no apology. That's the thing about Cassidy. When she burns bridges, she likes to do it without looking back. I watched her for a moment. She'd cut her hair the week before. Short, glossy, deliberately sharp. A social media reset, she'd called it. Her third in as many months. Her nails tapped a rhythm against the screen of her phone as she posted a story of her untouched breakfast, captioned with a quote that sounded borrowed from a breakup account. Healing means releasing expectations. I didn't comment. I'd learned not to. Across the kitchen, sunlight pushed in through the blinds, catching the steam off the eggs I'd made. Still warm, still untouched. I could hear the drip of the faucet. 1, 2. Silence. I folded the napkin beside her plate. There was a time when she used to set the table with me, ask to help crack the eggs, sit on the counter with her knees pulled to her chest, rattling on about school and swim practice and whatever drama was unfolding in the 8th grade lunchroom. She used to talk like I was a vault she trusted with all her little treasures. Now she barely spoke unless it was to correct me or dismiss something I'd offered. And yet I made breakfast every Sunday. Rituals are strange things. Sometimes we keep them long after they've stopped being mutual. She finished her toast, stood up without a word, and moved toward the hallway. "Where are you headed?" I asked. Not because I needed to know, but because I needed her to hear the steadiness in my voice. She didn't pause. "Meeting Mom at Golden Bean." Lara. She never used to call her that. It was always my birth mom or just her when she was being particularly bitter. But now it was Mom, just like that. As if the last 10 years had been a layover, a technical glitch. "She's helping me outline a branding strategy for the fall," Cassidy added, turning briefly to glance over her shoulder. "I might drop one of my classes. Focus more on content." "Which class?" She shrugged. "Don't worry about it. You're not paying for it anyway." That was when I stood, slowly, deliberately. I walked over to the sink and rinsed my hands beneath the cool stream, grounding myself in the quiet sound of water over skin. "No," I said softly. "I suppose I'm not." She lingered for a moment, waiting maybe. For what? I don't know. A reaction, a plea, a fight, but I gave her none. She walked out, bag slung over her shoulder like armor, boots clicking like punctuation marks. When the door closed, I exhaled, not with sadness but with certainty. Some lines, when crossed, don't need to be walked back. They just need to be acknowledged. I sat back down at the table, stirred my coffee, took a bite of my own toast, cold but passable. If I'm just Dad's wife, then I'm done playing mom without the credit. Let her see what that really looks like. It's funny how absence can be romanticized, how silence becomes mystery, and mystery becomes appeal. For a long time, Cassidy didn't ask about Lara, not in the way that meant anything. Once, in 5th grade, she asked if her mom's favorite color was still teal. I said I didn't know. She didn't ask again. There was no dramatic exit, no screaming match or custody trial, just a string of missed pickups, unanswered texts, and finally a single sentence from Lara's lawyer. My client does not wish to pursue custodial rights at this time. That was it. No tears, no fight, no parting gift. Just vacancy. I was 38 at the time, newly married to James, mid-promotion at work. I remember standing in the hallway with a spreadsheet open on one screen and Cassidy's peanut butter sandwich in my hand, wondering how to explain to a 10-year-old that her mother had filed her under optional. She didn't cry that night. One email marked, "We regret to inform you," from the editorial assistant program she'd once begged me to help her apply for. When I asked her about it, she shrugged. It was a toxic environment, no creative space. They wanted a robot, not a visionary. She always had a word ready, polished, purposeful. Her excuses wore better outfits than her resumes did. Meanwhile, her room filled with PR boxes, hair gummies she didn't take, skin serums she didn't use, books she never cracked open but held just long enough to photograph beside a cup of oat milk foam. One afternoon, I came home to find our living room rearranged. Chairs pushed back, the houseplants clustered in a corner to make a natural vibe corner. She had draped herself across the rug with a mug and a fake laugh. Dante crouched behind the camera, directing her like she was in a Vogue spread. I watched for a moment from the hallway. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and didn't care. "Can you move the ficus just a little more left?" he asked. "It's not a ficus," I muttered. Cassidy giggled. "Whatever, it's giving cozy." I walked away. Later that evening, I noticed her laptop open on the table, a tab labeled Monetization Tracker, another titled Audience Analysis. She was building a brand around self-care while barely eating, teaching confidence while asking Lara if her nose looked too real on camera, giving productivity tips while ignoring midterm emails. She called it branding. I called it avoidance. And yet, part of me understood it. Not approved of it, but understood. It was easier to perform clarity than to pursue it. Easier to collect compliments than correct your own direction. At 21, I probably would have done the same, if anyone had been watching. But Cassidy was being watched. That was the problem. She was being watched, liked, followed, applauded, all while her GPA dropped and her internship disappeared like a tab she forgot to save. Still, I said nothing. Because some things collapse better without interference. And some lessons? They echo louder when you're not clapping through them. If I wasn't a mother figure, I figured I'd stop mothering. There's a quiet kind of grief that comes with letting go of something you were never officially holding. I didn't have paperwork. I didn't have a title. All I had were years. So when Cassidy made it clear that I was just Dad's wife, I took her at her word. The first thing I did was email the leasing office. She didn't know I had been the co-signer on her apartment for 2 years. She thought the approval came through her great credit score. She didn't know it was my score underwriting her freedom. I didn't cancel the lease. I just removed myself from it. Quietly, neatly, one signature. The next thing I did was delete the draft I had saved on my desktop, her scholarship application essay. I'd spent 3 weekends helping her brainstorm ideas about resilience, about grit, about how her childhood had shaped her. She had written about Lara, of course, about being raised by a woman who taught me to find my truth. I didn't argue. I just opened the file, read it one more time, and then clicked, Move to Trash. I didn't touch her words, but I decided I wouldn't help polish them either. She never asked why I stopped following up. Just assumed she was taking her time to submit it. A week passed, then 2. The deadline came and went. She never noticed. Then there was the email I never sent. To Alyssa, the director at her old internship, who'd asked if I could put in a word for Cassidy at another agency. I had drafted it carefully, full of praise, highlighting Cassidy's creativity, her work ethic, her adaptability. But after that Sunday, after the toast and the sentence that still rang like a fire alarm in my ears, I hovered over that email and hit delete. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it out of alignment. If I wasn't her parental figure, then I had no business being her professional advocate. She couldn't have my mentorship while erasing my role. You don't get to curate relationships like outfits. James didn't say anything. Not when I stopped printing out deadlines and leaving them on the fridge. Not when I started coming home later from work, skipping our Sunday breakfasts altogether. He noticed, of course. But James has always been gentle, in the most frustrating kind of way. He's always been non-confrontational. I'm not. He was the calm in the marriage, the exhale. The man who handled tension by avoiding it, sidestepping conflict like it might stain the carpet. I married him because I wanted stability. But stability doesn't mean sturdy. Sometimes it just means quiet. He once told me Cassidy would come around. I asked him when. He didn't answer. Cassidy kept filming in the living room. She moved the furniture again one Thursday and turned the bay window into her content corner. The coffee table was covered in crystals and mood boards. I stepped over a box of collagen powder and walked straight into my office. She didn't look up. 2 days later, I got an email from the financial aid office at her school. A reminder that the FAFSA deadline was approaching, that a parent signature was still pending, that tuition calculations would be delayed without it. I archived it. Cassidy didn't mention it. Maybe she assumed I'd get to it eventually. Maybe she thought Laura would step in. Or maybe she didn't think about it at all. Because people who've always had safety nets don't check for holes until they hit the ground. I wasn't angry. That's the part no one really understands. This wasn't about anger. It was about math. Input and output. Time and return. Mothering and margin. And right now, the math didn't balance. I didn't slam doors. I didn't shout ultimatums. I didn't write cryptic social media captions or passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. I just stepped back. And the absence of my presence? It filled the house louder than my voice ever had. It unraveled the same way it had been built, publicly and too fast. The email came in on a Monday morning, time-stamped 9:42 a.m. Cassidy wasn't even awake yet. I read it twice before forwarding it to her, once to confirm, once to remind myself not to interfere. We regret to inform you that due to repeated absences and failure to meet project deadlines, your internship has been terminated effective immediately. No calls, no second chances. Just done. I didn't wake her up to tell her. I let the day do it for me. She came into the kitchen around 11, still wearing the oversized sweatshirt she'd slept in. She poured herself a glass of almond milk, scrolled for a few seconds, and froze. I watched her read it. Her thumb hovered over the screen like touching it might make the message retract itself. She set the glass down too hard. It sloshed onto the counter. "They're overreacting," she said, barely above a whisper. I missed one call. I said nothing. Just kept stirring my tea. "One," she repeated, louder this time. "I was at the retreat with Dante. We were filming. It was work." Still, I said nothing. She waited, maybe for comfort, maybe for outrage. But I'd retired from those roles weeks ago. If I wasn't allowed to mother, I wasn't going to bandage consequences either. She stormed off, slammed her door hard enough to rattle the picture frames. The next time I saw her was hours later, her hair curled, makeup on, camera set up. I heard the record button beep, then the soft, soothing voice she reserved for strangers. "Hi, loves. Just a quick life update. Sometimes paths shift. That's okay. I'm embracing new beginnings." She got the caption out. The lighting was perfect. Her voice didn't crack, but her hand shook just enough that I noticed. By Wednesday, the next email came in, this time from her university's academic advisor. Subject line: urgent, academic standing warning. Her GPA had dipped below the program's minimum requirement, 3 consecutive missed classes, an overdue project. Probation was imminent. She left the printed notice face up on the counter like it was mine to address. I flipped it over and placed it beneath a stack of unopened mail. By Friday, Laura had entered the group chat. Not literally. She wouldn't stoop to group texts. But Cassidy came home on speakerphone, holding the device like a trophy. "Mom says she'll call the dean. She knows people." Laura always knows people. Yoga instructors, tarot readers, energy coaches with honorary degrees in life clarity. Somehow, they all have proximity to someone important. She says the school is deeply patriarchal anyway, and that I should consider deferring for a semester, reset my vibration. Cassidy waited for me to respond. I didn't. Because I don't negotiate with delusions, especially not secondhand ones. She huffed, said something under her breath about being unsupported, and vanished into her room. I opened my laptop, pulled up my calendar, and began clearing recurring reminders. Cassidy FAFSA deadline. Delete. Remind Cassidy. Check in with internship mentor. Delete. Finalize scholarship rec letter. Delete. Each click felt like reclaiming square footage in my own head. I used to treat her schedule like it was an extension of my own. Syncing alarms, drafting checklists, proofing drafts. Now I was just pressing backspace on borrowed responsibility. Love without permission becomes servitude. I'd done my time. By Sunday, the cracks had widened. She hadn't filmed anything in days. Her stories were recycled quotes and vague captions. Rest is productive. You're allowed to outgrow your old life. It's always easier to talk about transformation than to go through it. She barely left her room. Her tripod stayed in the corner. Unopened PR boxes stacked around it like forgotten promises. James noticed. He asked if we should talk to her. I looked at him for a long moment. Talk to her how? As her stepmother, or as just her dad's wife? He didn't answer. He never does when the truth stings. Some people marry your dad and act like it gives them control. Her caption, my screenshot. It was posted at 7:14 p.m., just after dinner. I know because the dishes were still in the sink and I was halfway through drying the wine glasses when my phone buzzed. Not a text. A tag. I didn't check it right away. I've learned that anything urgent, truly urgent, doesn't come with a heart emoji and a moody filter. But when I did open it, there it was. Cassidy's latest, soft truth. Some people marry your dad and act like it gives them control. Healing means walking away from people who only want to manage your light. Beneath the caption, a photo of her, gazing dramatically out the window of a coffee shop. Hair perfectly undone. One hand curled around a ceramic mug like it held the secrets of her resilience. Aesthetic pain, bottled and filtered. I didn't react. Didn't send a text. Didn't march down the hallway and confront her. Instead, I took a screenshot. Just a quiet little tap. Screen, save, archive. This wasn't new. There had been others. Toxic homes don't always look broken. Just because they raised you doesn't mean they grew you. Some lessons come in silence. Some come wearing a wedding ring. All paired with artfully composed pictures. Bare feet on hardwood floors, mascara-smudged selfies in golden light, stills from self-timer photo shoots designed to look like vulnerability. I didn't respond to any of them, not because I didn't care, but because caring out loud would have made me part of the performance. Instead, I made a folder. I named it plainly, Documentation, Cassidy inside it. I saved screenshots of every post, every caption, every comment that twisted the truth just enough to sting. A digital collection of curated narratives, not for retaliation, for record. Because when someone rebrands you as the villain, you don't correct them in public. You gather your receipts and wait for the plot to turn on its own. I sent the folder to Monica. She's an old friend. We used to work together back when I still had a corner office and a salary that matched my stress level. She left corporate 6 years ago to open her own legal practice. Family law, mediation, boundary work, she calls it. She knows the language of controlled restraint better than anyone. This isn't libel, she said after scrolling through the folder. It's curated ambiguity, but it's useful. Don't engage, don't confront, just document. If anything escalates, if legal threats come, you'll be ready. I thanked her, not for the advice, for the validation, because silence is heavy. It starts to feel like complicity if you don't remind yourself that some fights are won by not picking them. James saw one of the posts, an earlier one. Cassidy had tagged him in a Father's Day story and left me out completely. No mention, no photo, just a caption. To the one parent who never judged me, who always supported me, who never tried to change who I was becoming. He looked at it for a long time before setting his phone face down on the table. She's angry, he said, voice low. She's confused. I nodded. So was I. I didn't post about it. He didn't have a reply to that either. I suppose he thinks I should be the bigger person. I've been the bigger person so long, I don't think he realizes I'm starting to disappear behind it. Cassidy posted another story the next day. You can love someone and still be grateful they're not your blood. That one didn't even sting. It just felt tired. By now, I could predict the rhythm. Pain post, moody playlist, followed by a carousel of healing quotes and blurry sunset photos with captions like, "Grief isn't linear, but it's honest." Then silence. Then a new round. I didn't reply. But I did what I do best. Tap, screen, save, archive. I've learned something about people who turn their lives into content. They need an audience more than they need resolution. And the moment you step into their script, you become a character they control. I'd spent 11 years being her mother. I wasn't about to become her storyline, so I watched. I waited. And I let the archive grow. She showed up in white linen with a Starbucks and a civil litigation pamphlet. I opened the door expecting a package. What I got was Lara. Loose waves, perfect tan, flowy linen pantsuit 2 shades too bright for October. She held a drink in one hand and a file folder in the other, both gripped with the same kind of curated casualness you only get from years of pretending you're fine. "Hi, Evelyn," she said like we were brunch friends. "Do you have a moment?" No greeting, no heads up, no regard, just a tone that assumed access. Behind her, Cassidy hovered on the porch steps, arms crossed tightly, mascara already starting to run. She wasn't crying yet, but she had the look of someone who'd rehearsed it all morning and was saving the tears for maximum impact. I didn't invite them in. I simply stepped aside. The sooner the scene began, the sooner I could get to the part where I left it. Lara floated into the living room like she owned it or planned to. She dropped the folder on the coffee table and gestured to the couch like we were at a consultation. "I've been speaking with someone," she began, peeling the lid off her drink and taking a measured sip, "and I think we need to discuss what's happening in this house." Cassidy sat down beside her, pulling her sleeves over her hands like a child. She looked everywhere but at me. "I'm listening," I said, arms folded, voice steady. Lara opened the folder. Inside, a single pamphlet labeled, "Your Rights as a Parent, Emergency Custody Options." The kind of thing you could download from a free legal site or pick up in a courthouse lobby between hearings. "Cassidy's been in distress," she said, flipping the folder like it contained evidence. "She's told me you've emotionally withdrawn, financially manipulated her, and created a hostile environment." Cassidy sniffled softly on cue. "She's lost her job, her school standing. She's spiraling, and you're not supporting her." I nodded once. "You're correct." That threw her. Just for a second. "I'm not supporting her," I continued, "because she told me she didn't want my support, so I stopped offering it." "You can't just opt out," Lara snapped, voice rising. "You're an adult. You've been in her life for over a decade." "Correct again." Cassidy looked up at me, eyes wide, searching. Maybe for softness. Maybe for retreat. She found neither. Lara shifted forward on the couch. "We're prepared to involve legal counsel. I've spoken to a lawyer, and if necessary, we'll take this to court." I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then I said the only thing I planned to say. "You're welcome to try." She blinked. Cassidy froze. "I have documentation," I added, still calm. "Bank statements, emails, screenshots of every public allegation Cassidy has posted. I also have Monica, family law, 15 years of experience, and unlike your energy coach, she's bar certified." Lara set her drink down a little too hard. The lid popped. "I came here in good faith," she said sharply. "No," I said, tilting my head. "You came here in linen pants with an empty file folder and a Starbucks. That's not good faith. That's theater." Cassidy flinched. "I'm not going to yell," I said, softer now. "I'm not going to fight you, but I will protect myself. And if Cassidy decides to pursue adult independence, that includes adult consequences. Financially, legally, emotionally." I turned to Cassidy. "If you want to live with your mother, that's your choice. If you want her support, take it. But what you don't get to do is light a match, walk away, and then sue the ashes. She started crying for real then, not performatively, not softly, just tears, shoulders curling, breath shallow. "I thought you cared about me," she choked out. "I did," I said. "I still do. But care doesn't always look like rescuing. Sometimes it looks like stepping back and letting someone see the floor." Lara stood abruptly. "We'll be in touch," I nodded. "I'll let Monica know to expect your call." They left without another word. When the door closed, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I called Monica. She answered on the second ring. "Let me guess. Civil threats in a calm tone?" "White linen," I said. "And a pumpkin cold brew." She laughed. "Text me the timeline. I'll start prepping a file." I sent it that night, along with every screenshot. Because when someone tries to rewrite your story, you don't tear out pages. You keep the originals, and you file them under Exhibit A. "She's 21, Lara," Monica said. "You're not filing for custody. You're filing for attention." The conference room was neutral beige, with chairs that tried too hard to be comfortable and a coffee station no one touched. Lara arrived early, as if punctuality could make her seem more credible. Cassidy trailed behind her, dressed in business casual and barely hiding the panic in her eyes. I wondered if Lara had picked her outfit. Monica sat beside me, sharp in charcoal gray, hair pinned back, a single folder in front of her. She didn't need a briefcase. She didn't need backup. Just facts, neatly tabbed. The opposing counsel was a man named Gregory Ward, clean-shaven, polite, and clearly uncomfortable with the case he'd been handed. He looked like someone who specialized in divorce mediation for couples who still shared a dog. We began with introductions. Lara went first, her voice dripping with faux concern. "We're here because my daughter has been emotionally and financially abandoned by her father's wife, someone who has acted in a maternal role for years and is now refusing to provide basic support." Cassidy flinched at the word abandoned but didn't speak. Gregory added, "Our client is seeking limited financial restitution and transitional support for Cassidy, as well as an injunction preventing further emotional harassment." I almost laughed. Monica didn't. She simply nodded, flipped open the folder and said, "Let's begin." She passed around a stapled packet. Exhibit A, 11 years of bank transfers, tuition payments, summer camps, weekly groceries. Exhibit B, text threads confirming permission slips, therapy sessions, emergency contacts. Exhibit C, a letter from Cassidy's middle school addressed to me as the primary guardian. Gregory adjusted his tie. Lara didn't blink. Monica tapped the last page of the stack. "And here we have Cassidy's 18th birthday, on which she legally aged out of any non-biological parental obligation. There was no formal adoption. Evelyn supported her voluntarily for 3 more years." Lara leaned forward, her tone falsely sweet. "But there was an emotional contract. Evelyn positioned herself as a parent. She signed cards as Evie Mom. She attended school plays. That has weight." Monica smiled without warmth. "So does absence. Cassidy's biological mother declined custody in 2011. I have the court record if you'd like to revisit your original statement of non-interest." That was the first time Lara shifted in her seat. "She was 10, Monica continued, voice even. "You didn't contest visitation. You didn't call for holidays. You submitted a 1-line affidavit and vanished." Lara opened her mouth. Monica didn't let her. "They called it abandonment. The records called it aging out." Cassidy spoke then, soft and cracked. "I just wanted help." I looked at her, and for a second I saw the girl I used to pick up from band practice, the one who once made me a Mother's Day card with too much glitter and wrote, "Thank you for choosing me." Monica turned to her, voice softer now. "Cassidy, no one's saying you can't ask for help. But help is different from entitlement. What you're asking for now is enforcement of a relationship that was never legally defined and is no longer financially sustainable." Cassidy's eyes welled, but she nodded. Lara stood up suddenly, as if movement could reclaim control. "This is ridiculous. You've turned her against me. I came here to mediate, not to be insulted." Monica remained seated. You came here to make noise. We came with evidence. Gregory cleared his throat. Given the documentation, we'll withdraw the petition. Lara turned to Cassidy, furious now. Is this what you want? To let her humiliate me? Cassidy didn't answer. She just looked down at the table, hands folded in her lap, and said nothing. That silence echoed louder than any legal statement ever could. When it was over, Monica and I walked out into the parking lot without a word. The sky was overcast. It smelled like rain that hadn't arrived yet. I let the air hit my face and exhaled. Didn't even need half the tabs I prepped, Monica said, unlocking her car. She came with a pamphlet, I replied. She smiled. Next time she might bring a mood board. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. The case was closed. The room was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was no longer on trial for being the one who stayed. She still played music upstairs, but her speakers were off. Silence is its own kind of volume. The house was quieter now. Not empty, not cold, just quieter. Like the walls were holding their breath, waiting for something to settle. Cassidy still played music. I'd hear it late at night. Muffled beats, the kind that used to rattle the vents and fill the hallway with artificial joy, but now it was low. Private. Like even the music wasn't sure it belonged here anymore. She kept her door closed, not locked, just gently, pointedly closed. Sometimes I'd hear her typing, scrolling, pacing. Once I heard her crying. Not the sharp sobs of someone seeking attention, no gasping, no throat in it. Just soft, small sounds, like something breaking in a room she didn't want me to enter. I didn't knock. Not because I didn't care, but because care doesn't always come with an open hand. Some heartbreaks don't need fixing. They need space. She wasn't going to college that semester. That much was certain. Her advisor had confirmed it in a short, clipped email. Cassidy has not re-enrolled for spring term. Her academic standing remains unresolved. Her internship was gone. The opportunity with the publishing agency, gone. And the influencer work? That dried up quietly too. The brand email slowed, then stopped. The boxes disappeared from the porch. The engagement she'd once rattled off like stock prices now trickled into double digits. Her follower count plateaued, then dropped. Comments went unanswered. Stories were fewer and further between. There was no big announcement. No taking a break from social media to focus on my healing caption. Just absence. The algorithm moved on without her. I'd hear her checking her phone at night. The way the screen clicked when she refreshed. The way it didn't ping back. Silence like a slap. James noticed too. He tried to ask once, softly, in the kitchen, over reheated leftovers. Should we check on her? I didn't look up from my plate. She knows where the door is if she needs us. He sighed, guilt heavy in his exhale. She's still just a kid. She's 21. She's hurting. I know. I left it there, because parenting isn't a performance. And Cassidy had spent months auditioning for a version of life that didn't include me. Now she was living it, without applause. There were small shifts, though. I noticed. She started waking up earlier. Still late, but not noon late. Dressed in leggings instead of satin robes. Less gloss, more cotton. Her ring light stayed in the closet, her camera untouched. One afternoon I passed her room and saw her at her desk. No filming, just reading. An actual book. A highlighter in her hand. The candle she once called brand ambiance had burned down to a stub. She hadn't replaced it. On Thursday I found her laundry in the dryer, folded neatly, without me asking. On Friday she made a grocery list and left it on the counter, not with expectations, just a quiet offering. Bananas, coffee pods, granola. I bought the bananas. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. Because the thing about silence is, it teaches you who someone is when there's nothing left to post, prove, or pretend. I used to fill the gaps for her. Emails, forms, meals, encouragement. I built a whole infrastructure around her. Quiet scaffolding she never saw. She only noticed it when I took it away, and now she was standing on her own. Wobbling, yes, but upright. Grief isn't always about who left. Sometimes it's about who stayed, and then stopped doing the staying for you. Cassidy had always assumed I'd catch her, that my care came with permanence, but now, she was starting to understand the weight of a safety net, and the cost of burning the hands that wove it. One night she passed me in the hallway and paused. Just paused. Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how to start, so she nodded, and I nodded back. That was all. But in the quiet, it felt like something was beginning again. Her final story was a quote over a beach sunset. "Sometimes love ruins you." It got 11 likes. It was posted just after midnight. I wasn't checking for it, but the glow from my phone caught my eye on the nightstand. I saw the name first, Cassidy Rowan. Then the image, a heavily filtered stock photo of a shoreline, pastel and blurred, like it had been passed through 3 editing apps on low brightness. Beneath it, white cursive over soft waves. "Sometimes love ruins you." That was all. No caption, no tags, no context. 11 likes. 2 were from accounts I recognized. One was a girl she used to intern with. The other an influencer who once reposted Cassidy's morning routine reel. The rest were strangers or bots. I stared at it for a moment longer than I meant to. Then I turned off my screen. That post stayed up for 2 days. No new content followed, no follow-up story, no teary-eyed video explaining the pain behind the prose. Just silence. And then it disappeared. Archived, deleted, swallowed by the same algorithm that once lifted her. The final retreat didn't come with drama, just diminishing attention. Cassidy tried in those days. You could see it. This quiet flurry of effort. She reached out to old contacts, people she'd once promised to collaborate soon with. She refreshed LinkedIn. She even updated her resume, though it was mostly fluff: brand strategist, engagement specialist, creative direction for digital wellness identities. No one replied, or if they did, it was polite and cold. "We're not hiring right now, but wishing you all the best. Circle back in a few months when we've reassessed Q2 needs. Looks great, but not quite what we're looking for at this time." She started wearing headphones during the day. Not listening, just blocking out. Her laptop stayed open on job sites she scrolled through without clicking. The phone buzzed less. No PR boxes, no emails marked urgent collab, just a slow drip of reality, each drop louder than the last. Then came Rico. Or rather, the fallout from Rico. I didn't find out from Cassidy. I found out from Monica, who texted me a link without comment. Local fitness influencer arrested in supplement scheme. Products laced with non-FDA ingredients. Rico's face was in the thumbnail, smug and glazed with the kind of confidence that never survived court dates. The article detailed a raid on his gym, 3 hospitalizations, and a full FDA investigation. Cassidy's name wasn't mentioned, but the timeline lined up. When I got home that night, the house was quiet. Cassidy was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "He's going to jail," she said without looking up. I sat down across from her, said nothing. One of the supplements had cornstarch and something else. They're saying it could have triggered seizures. Still, I didn't speak. She exhaled long and low. I should have known. I didn't correct her. She did know. But there's a difference between knowing and admitting. She fiddled with the corner of the tea bag. Her hands looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe they were just no longer weighed down with brand deals and borrowed confidence. "Mom blocked me," she added after a moment. I looked up. After the news broke, she texted me once, told me to stop tagging her, said she's working on her image. There was no emotion in her voice, not anger, not sadness, just vacancy. A window someone had finally closed. She thought her world fell apart. I knew it had just stopped being handed to her. For a while she sat in silence, staring at that cup like it held an answer. Then she stood, rinsed it, and left the room. No apology, no breakdown. Just a girl quietly coming to terms with the difference between being watched and being seen. The beach post never came back. Neither did the quotes. And in their absence, I realized something. Cassidy was learning that visibility isn't the same thing as value. That applause is a rented thing. And when it dries up, what's left is the mirror. And maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to look into it. She didn't say sorry. She said she saw me now. That was harder to write. I came home to the kind of silence that wasn't empty. It was deliberate. Full. The lights were off in the kitchen. The chairs tucked in. The house didn't look disturbed. But something had shifted in the air, like the end of a storm you hadn't noticed had passed. On the counter, right by the coffee pot, was a single piece of paper, folded once, not in an envelope, just waiting. My name was written on the front, not Evie or Mom or any of the variations I'd answered to over the years. Just Evelyn. That alone said everything. I didn't open it right away. I stood there for a moment, grocery bags still dangling from my arm, reading the fold like it had weight. I placed the bags down gently, slid the paper into my palm, and walked to the dining table. The chair creaked when I sat. I unfolded it slowly. No punctuation on the first line. Just her handwriting, slightly shaky, still round in the way she used to write as a child when she dotted her I's with hearts. You didn't owe me anything. You gave me everything. I paused. Read it again. I chose pretty lies over plain love. I didn't even know I was doing it. It just felt easier to follow the people who made it sound simple, who told me what I wanted to hear, who didn't ask anything from me but a good picture. My eyes drifted toward the hallway, toward the room she kept closed now, not because she was hiding, but because she was trying to rebuild something inside it. I know I said cruel things. I know I rewrote you into the villain because that made my choices look like strength. I thought if I painted you cold, I wouldn't have to feel how much I missed your warmth. There was no dramatic language, no strings of apologies, no poetic metaphors, just the sound of a girl learning how to speak honestly again. I miss you. I miss who I was when you believed in me. My hand stayed on the page for a while after I finished reading. No tears came, just stillness, just breathe. Because this wasn't a letter asking to be forgiven. It was a letter asking to be seen. And that made all the difference. She hadn't said sorry. She said she saw me. That's harder. That costs more. I folded the note back into thirds, as carefully as I could, smoothing out the crease lines with the side of my finger. Then I stood, walked to my bedroom, and opened the drawer in my nightstand, the one with old receipts, expired coupons, and a few photographs I hadn't been able to throw away. I slipped the note in gently, didn't reply, didn't text. Some words aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to echo for a while. That night, I didn't hear crying. I didn't hear her typing. I didn't hear anything at all. Just the gentle hum of a house in the early stages of healing. James noticed the quiet. He looked at me over his book, question in his eyes. She left a note, I said simply. He waited as if expecting more. I gave him a small smile. It was a start. He nodded once. Didn't ask to read it. He knew better. Later, as I stood brushing my teeth, I caught my own reflection. There were more lines under my eyes, more gray than I remembered. But I looked less tired, like something in me had unclenched. We spend so much time trying to hold our children up. No one tells you the real work is knowing when to step aside so they can try standing. The note stayed in my drawer. I didn't frame it. I didn't reread it every morning. But I knew it was there. And sometimes, knowing is enough. The eggs were rubbery. The apology wasn't. That's progress. I smelled it before I saw her. Burnt toast, overheated oil. The unmistakable tang of effort from someone who had never bothered to read a recipe, only watched them from a distance. The scent drifted down the hallway like a peace offering wrapped in smoke. I walked into the kitchen and paused. Cassidy stood at the stove in one of James's old college sweatshirts, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back. Her back was straight, but everything else about her posture screamed careful. Not poised, just fragile and trying. She glanced over her shoulder when she heard me. I made breakfast, she said, like it was a question. On the table, 2 plates, 2 mugs, silverware slightly mismatched. The eggs were clearly overcooked, edges browned and curling. The toast was uneven, one slice practically charred, but she had cut up strawberries, arranged them in a little fan, like she was trying to say, "I remembered something about you." I sat. No comment, no smile, just the sound of the chair scraping quietly against the tile as I pulled it out and joined her. She placed the plate in front of me carefully, almost reverently, as if it were breakable, as if I were. "I didn't know you liked your bacon crispy," she said as she sat across from me. "I didn't know you were learning to cook," I answered. She shrugged. "Trying." We ate in silence for a few minutes, the kind that didn't need to be filled, the kind that only comes after a collapse, when all the noise has settled and you're both still standing. She cleared her throat first. "I meant what I wrote," she said quietly. "I know. I wasn't sure if I should say it out loud. You just did." She smiled, not wide, just enough. I looked at her for a long moment. She was the same girl and also not. Her eyes held something new, not defiance, not desperation, just readiness. She wasn't asking to be rescued. She was offering to begin, so I gave her terms, not as punishment, as structure. "Here's what I need if we're going to try this again," I said. "A minimum 3.2 GPA, if you want any part of the college fund to remain an option." She nodded. No protest, just a quiet, steady yes. "You'll need a part-time job, weekends, afternoons, doesn't matter where. Something that teaches you what it means to earn the things you want." Another nod. Slower, but still there. "And the most important thing," I continued, "is respect. That means no shouting, no eye-rolling, no cutting me with words and calling it independence. This house deserves peace, and so do I." She blinked quickly, like she wasn't expecting that part to hurt. "I can do that," she said. "Good, because trust doesn't reset with an apology. It rebuilds with time, with behavior." "I understand," she said. And this time her voice wasn't small. It was clear in that way truth sometimes is. "I don't expect you to trust me yet. I just want a chance to earn it." I looked at her and believed her. Not completely, but enough to stay seated, enough to keep eating. She reached for her mug and took a sip, winced a little. Too much cinnamon. "There's this girl at Prescott," she said, changing the subject just slightly. "Naomi, she's in my lit class. She saw one of my old Instagram posts and told me I sounded like a spoiled brat." I raised an eyebrow. "She wasn't mean," Cassidy clarified quickly. "Just honest. She said, 'If your mom gave you everything and you threw it away for aesthetics, that's on you.'" Then she lent me her notes. "Sounds like someone worth knowing." "She is," she said. "She's different." "Real?" Cassidy smiled. "Yeah, real. We didn't hug, we didn't cry. We just sat there, two women trying to build something out of the ash without calling it a fire." She stood to clear the table. I let her. The fork scraped against the plate just slightly, but there was no tension in the sound. When she passed behind me, I heard her murmur, just barely, "Thank you." For sitting. I didn't respond, just nodded once, slowly. Sometimes the smallest conversations hold the loudest truths. And this one? This one sounded like a beginning. She deleted her influencer account on a Tuesday. No captions, no drama, just gone. No final post, no goodbye message, no pastel quote over a blurry sunrise, just a missing profile, a blank square where her name used to be, as if she'd stepped out of the frame on purpose and closed the door behind her. I noticed before she told me. It was instinct, I suppose. I'd grown used to checking her page the same way you glance in the rearview mirror, just to see what was still following you. When I opened the app and searched her name, it said, "User not found." No drama, just done. Cassidy didn't announce it over dinner. She didn't come into the room looking for praise. But that night, as we passed each other in the hallway, she said quietly, "It wasn't helping anymore." I nodded. "Good." We didn't elaborate. Some acts of growth don't need commentary. They just need room. She picked up a weekend shift at the used bookstore downtown. Nothing fancy. Minimum wage, long hours, and shelves that creaked when you touched them. But she came home with ink smudges on her hands and a sort of stillness in her shoulders I hadn't seen in years. One night she told me about a woman who came in looking for a memoir on loss. I didn't know what to recommend, Cassidy admitted. So I just listened. That's the best start, I said. Listening. She nodded. Her shoes were worn out, her nails unpolished, her stories smaller, but somehow more real. She started bringing home brochures, not glossy ones, not brochures for Bali retreats or digital branding camps. These were plain, folded twice, from the community college 2 neighborhoods over. We went through them together. She circled programs in psychology and creative writing, asked about credits, about transfer options. She didn't ask me to help with the application, but she left it on the counter, unsigned. I filled out the parent information section, signed my name, and placed it back in her folder without saying a word. This wasn't a grand reconciliation. It was something quieter, something earned. She still made mistakes, missed an early shift once, came home one night with a tear-streaked face and wouldn't say why. I didn't press. Healing doesn't move in a straight line. It loops, it stutters, it stalls, but it moves. And I saw it in the little things. Her laundry folded before I asked, the dishes put away without fanfare, the soft good night she whispered as she passed my door. James noticed too. He brought her home a muffin from the bakery she used to love and left it on the kitchen island with a note. "You're doing okay, kid." She left him a post-it in return. "Thanks, Dad, I'm trying." Lara, on the other hand, disappeared. There were no more voicemails, no legal emails, no surprise visits. Just one final post that Monica forwarded to me with a timestamp and a tired sigh. "Some people will drain your energy and call it parenting. Protect your aura. Burn sage. Love yourself." It got 8 likes, and that was the last I heard from her. Not all disappearances are tragedies. Some are just overdue exits. Cassidy never mentioned her again. Maybe she still thought about her. Maybe she didn't. But her focus was no longer on who hadn't stayed. It was on what she could still build. Quiet mornings, evening tea, budgeting spreadsheets, college essays she wrote with a pencil instead of a ring light. And me, still here, still sitting across from her. Not a savior, not a villain. Just someone who stayed long enough for her to circle back. I didn't wonder if she'd come back to me. She already had. She was just waiting for me to notice. It was Sunday evening. The kind of quiet that only comes after a week well lived. The laundry was done. The air smelled faintly of lemon and laundry detergent. The house felt warm, not in temperature but in energy. Settled. Cassidy was in the kitchen, not performing, not narrating her every move for an audience. Just there, barefoot, hair pulled into a messy knot, sleeve tugged up to keep from brushing against the kettle. I walked in to grab my book. She didn't look up. Just said, "Evie, do you want tea?" There it was. Not Mom, not Miss Evelyn, just Evie, soft, familiar, reverent. I nodded. Sure. She didn't rush. She made mine first. Knew exactly which mug, exactly how long I steeped it. Set it down with both hands like it mattered. We sat at the dining table. No phones, no background music. She blew gently into her cup. "I think I'm going to enroll for fall," she said. "If they'll have me." "They will." "I've been writing again," she added. "Not posts, just writing." "That's good." She looked up. Her eyes were steady. "I'm not asking you to forget everything." "I'm not offering to," I said. A small smile flickered. "But I'd like to rebuild." "I know." She didn't ask what that would look like. She didn't ask if I'd let her. She just stayed seated. Still. Present. We finished our tea in silence. Later, she rinsed the mugs. I watched from the hallway as she wiped down the counter, turned off the light, and walked past me with a quiet goodnight. I stood there a few seconds longer, holding the moment like a photograph. She's not my biological daughter. She's just the one I chose. And this time, maybe, she's choosing me back. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't wonder if she'd leave again. Because the girl I loved wasn't in the posts, or the pages, or the apologies. She was in the cup of tea she made without asking,